beautiful citizens of the internet. Namaste. So, as you know, your boy Trump was recently indicted, and he made a lot of money fundraising off of it. And as a result of that, his son was on friend of the show Tim Pool's podcast, fellow Beanie Wearer, and just had some really great, interesting stuff to say that I would like to play for you right now. Listen to. Let's just jump right into these quotables. Why don't we?
From Trump. No, it's not. But Dom, what's your vision of the future?
Listen, I think you need someone to go burn it all down.
Yes.
Trump as a lame duck is actually much better than someone that has to get reelected again and has to play that game. I want someone who will go in there and literally burn it to the ground, because it needs to be that. I used to believe, guys, even when I got into this, I functioned at a high level in business, and we did billion-dollar deals and, real shit. And, I got there and was like, well, listen, this is what America is. And I believe this, and I'm a patriot. And I'm like, oh, my God. Even, once I went through what I went through with Russia, 50 hours of testimony and Adam Schiff up there saying I committed treason somehow. And then I see, well, of course, nothing happens with that. Of course, none of that was actually accurate. It was all a perjury trap, hoping that in 50 hours of testimony, asking me the same, 1,000 questions, maybe I say it a little bit differently the 50th time I'm asked, and therefore I committed perjury, and that's how they get you. But even I, who sort of had my eyes open during that, were like, well, there's still something to it, right? We all made the same mistake with the FBI and what they tried to do to Michael Flynn. It's like, well, it's the FBI. There must be some truth to it, right? They're not fully corrupted. It's the FBI, the CIA, same thing.
Well, so let's...
Then we're seeing them go after parents in this. Those people are domestic terrorists, a concerned parent going to a PTA meeting. But, some, trans shooter can have a manifesto and kill a bunch of Christian kids. And, well, that's not domestic terrorists because they're Christians. Like, who really gives a shit? It's really scary where we're at. And
let me ask you.
I want to burn it to the ground.
So, but when you say that, what's the practical step? Is that what was that policy that Trump Senior he's going to fire?
Schedule F.
Schedule F. Schedule F. When you say that, is that what you were meaning? Like, we're going to go and we're going to defund the FBI, we're going to fire all the bureaucrats?
Yes. I mean, you got to do as much as you possibly can. You got to get other people who are willing to go along with that. Because, I think that's what, in 16, we're like, hey, we're coming in from the outside. You sort of assume that, hey, you may have a little bit differences in policy and whatever, but, people still want the best for America. And that's just not even remotely true. These bureaucrats, they wouldn't succeed in so many other things. And they're going to hold on to what little power they have because they wouldn't get it anywhere else. You see that what's going on, in our military and, the woke nonsense. I'm like, the decision making.
So he kind of goes off on these tangents right there, and they talk about how they view the Afghanistan thing as a surrender, which I think is silly because Trump's the one who did the Afghanistan withdrawal, and Biden's people just finished it as they were coming in. And maybe they botched it. Maybe Trump would have done it better. Of course, Trump always says he's going to do everything better. You know how he rolls. The takeaway from this, though, is what he said, burn it to the ground. And he even gave specifics. And he also kind of said when they came in, he kind of alluded to, I think what Trump's biggest problem was, is that they ended up hiring people like John Bolton that, Washington insiders, quote unquote, that kind of steered the administration in directions that they shouldn't have. I've read articles about people doing stuff without getting approval from the president, just doing it, and I can't cite specifics right now, but I know that happened. So, there's that factor too. So I think after the first time, it's interesting to hear Don Jr. say these things about being on trial for the Russia stuff too, because the perjury trap thing is kind of what they did to Flynn, right? They basically wiretapped him, and then the FBI interviewed him, and what he said to the FBI didn't match their wiretaps, they arrested him, and that's, his case got dismissed. Whatever. So there's one other clip, and Don Jr. goes off on tangents, and it's actually kind of funny to watch because this one guy keeps trying to get a word in edgewise, and maybe to give Don the benefit of the doubt, maybe it's just because he's not in the room. He's on a phone call, so he's not seeing them. He doesn't get the visual cues that they're trying to, get a word in. But it's listen to this next clip. He talks a little bit about, this is something that I think it's interesting to hear him kind of vocalize this, because this is something that I don't think a lot of people really understand about the way that DC works. And I saw this with the Bernie campaign, where it's like, one of the big reasons Bernie wasn't allowed to win in the Democratic primaries, because the people who live in this ecosystem that Trump is about to describe, Don Jr. is about to describe, would not have a Bernie Sanders Democratic nominee, because their jobs would be over. So listen to this. This is interesting as well.
National TV, because as long as you were going against Trump, you got an extra camera in your face. You got the cover of Vanity Fair or some nonsense rag, and that was his currency.
So what do you think Trump's as to just re-ask what
biggest shortcoming of Donald Trump?
Yeah, listen, I would say it has to be on that hiring front, because when you come in as a new from outside of that world, it takes a lot. It's hard to overcome decades of being no, if you're going to do this and you're a public servant, you're doing it for the right reasons. And man, it is so wrong. It's like what you see in politics. Like some of these people that are running, it's like they have no chance. You know what it is? It's a book tour.
Absolutely.
They're running so they can drum up some numbers for a book tour, or some guys are running because the consultant class that we won't hire needs to have a job, and they got to make their 8 or 9 figures taking 20% of the ad buy of someone's campaign. And they're pushing people, they're being forced into it because the consultant class is hey, listen, if you guys don't do it, we're going to have to, just get by with a congressional race, and we're not going to make $15 million this cycle on the ad buy.
Yeah,
it's a screwed up place, man. And people don't fully understand that. I dealt at a pretty high level, and I didn't fully understand it. And I certainly didn't understand how deep and depraved it actually is until, man, every day my eyes are further opened. And, this week was sort of the culmination.
I think it's interesting to hear him talk, because he obviously is a very intelligent guy and, has his finger on the pulse. And I think one of the things that people in the progressive left should consider and think about is that the kind of person who is saying stuff like this, Trump Jr. saying stuff like this, I think you could get to him with an argument in favor of Medicare for all or a public health care option based on entrepreneurialism. Because what's the number one thing if you want to inject energy into entrepreneurialism? The number one thing you could do in the United States is have a public healthcare system, because a lot of people are tied to their jobs for that reason, and you would create a renaissance of entrepreneurialism by passing a public healthcare system, or at least a public option in the United States. Just reforming healthcare system completely. And I think when you've got the sentiment of a burn it all down, and if you position the issue like that as a business focused initiative, you could get the Trumps to support that. And maybe, who knows, if they're trying to build a coalition to win an election, you could the progressive left could come to the table with something like that and maybe win some favor or win some policy in that realm, some populist policy on the right. Because honestly, look at what's going. When I look around at politics right now, the people on the right are doing exciting stuff. Matt Gaetz is the one who, the first of all, the Freedom Caucus people used their leverage and got concessions out of McCarthy, but Matt Gaetz is the one who's out there, trying to stop the Ukraine war and trying to withdraw troops from Syria. Where's the progressive anti-war left on this stuff? To her credit, Rashida Tlaib recently started working on something with Marjorie Taylor Greene in relation to Assange. But anyway, point being, I think all that right and left stuff is out the window when you listen to sentiment like this. And I wanted to kind of like highlight that because, I think Tim Pool does a good job of having these conversations. And a lot of times these little tidbits like this get missed by the greater, in the greater political conversation, they get missed. And I think what he's saying here, people need to hear, because it's regardless of whether you like Trump or not, real reform, a serious change like what he's suggesting is what's needed. And you can't deny that. So anyway, take good care of yourself.